All right. Welcome back to 10 in the Head. As always, that was the Devil's Cut leading us in. Love that band. Straight out of Lansing, Michigan. They're doing an East Coast tour right now. If you're out there, make sure you're checking them out. Look them up. Today, it's going to be a fun episode. This episode, I'm delighted to have a man who may not need an introduction, but I'll give him one anyway. Mike Randle, a fantasy contributor for Roto Underworld, Last Word on Sports, Dynasty Trade Calculator, host of Screen the Screener podcast. That's a college basketball podcast, and before you know it, that season's going to be starting up soon. Spartans are going to win it all, so make sure to listen. I'm sure Mike will talk good about the Spartans. Is that right, Mike?
Oh, Nick, thanks so much for having me, and you're darn right. I was going off last year. I said that if Miles Bridges had come out, he should have been the number one overall pick, Markelle Fultz, all those people. I don't want to hear about it. So him coming back, I definitely have Michigan State as my number one team next year. So, yeah, right on. It's a great time for fantasy football, and college basketball is coming up around the corner.
I love it. Bridges last year was phenomenal. I'm so glad he stayed back as a Spartan lover. Wish we could have got Josh Jackson last year. Him and Bridges last year would have been fun to watch. Jackson's gone to the NBA. We're not here to talk college basketball. I'll get to that some other day. Let's talk fantasy football, and specifically today, we're talking one specific position. Get your popcorn ready, because we are talking about the burners of the NFL, the wide receivers. Without further ado, let's jump into our 10 questions. So question number one is a pretty simple question. Who's the best wide receiver to draft this year? And it's easy to say Antonio Brown, Odell Beckham Jr., Julio Jones with his yard per catch. But I'm going to go a little off the wall here, and I'm going to say the best wide receiver to draft this year is Jordy Nelson. Now, Nelson seems to be an overthought. His age is scary and previous injuries are alarming. But according to Football DB, Nelson finished first in standard scoring, outscoring Antonio Brown by 8 points last year, and second in PPR scoring, 1 point behind Antonio Brown. Both inside the 20 and 10-yard line, he led the league in targets, receptions, yards, touchdowns. And touchdowns might be a hard stat to project, but when you're on the Green Bay Packers and you have Aaron Rodgers throwing to you, it's not that hard to predict. So in my opinion, everyone that's skipping Jordy Nelson because of his injuries and past just scariness to his age, spare me. Let me get Jordy Nelson while everyone jumps ahead trying to get the big guy. I like Jordy's consistent stats. Mike, what do you say?
Hey, I like that take, Nick, because I'm a huge Jordy Nelson fan, and if there was going to be a drop-off last year, it would have occurred early on because he came back, he looked a little slower, but in the red zone, the guy is fantasy gold. So I think that's a great pick, and I like that pick better than Odell Beckham, better than Julio Jones, but I will stay with Antonio Brown. I think it begins and ends with him, and the main reason is consistency. Not only does he catch deep passes, not only is he a superb route runner, but the Steelers make a huge push to get him the ball early and often in games. His connection with Ben Roethlisberger is just as strong as Jordy with Aaron Rodgers. And last year, keep in mind, he had a great fantasy wide receiving year. He finished first in fantasy points with 20.5 PPR points per game, yet he was only 17th in red zone receptions, which is odd for him. Normally he's in the top 4 or 5. So if he can give that sort of production while having a down year in the red zone, I don't see how he's not the safest wide receiver out there. OBJ is up and down. Julio always has a nagging injury. I do like Jordy Nelson also. He'd be my second, but I'll put Antonio Brown first.
I love it. Antonio Brown is going to be a beast. We all know that. There's a consensus why he, in my opinion, should be in the top 3 picks. Everyone has him in the top 4. Everyone's loving the running backs this year. Great pick. Antonio Brown, Jordy Nelson. Let's run on to question number 2. So question number 2 is something that no one might even listen to because the fact is Quincy Enunwa's out for the year. So with Quincy Enunwa out for the year, the Jets are going to throw the ball. Who is primed at wide receiver position to be, or I guess I should say, who is primed to be the top fantasy receiver on the New York Jets? In my opinion, I've been calling this guy for a while now. Early May, I started really liking him, and it's Darius Stewart. He's not listed as a starter right now. That doesn't concern me. In 16 games, I have a good feeling that Darius Stewart is going to really find a connection with Josh McCown and be able to to stretch the sideline, be able to catch the ball. He's got great hands. Obviously, Robbie Anderson worked a lot during the offseason on his route running, on bulking up and getting better at the wide receiver position. He seems to be the consensus number one receiver now. He had a little bit of issues in the clubs during the offseason. I don't think that'll affect any suspensions or anything coming his way. But I like Ardarius Stewart. Keep Ardarius Stewart's name in your mind. Might be a great person to be thinking about. However, not speaking receiver, I do think the top fantasy receiver, I guess, of the Jets is going to be their tight end, Austin Seferian-Jenkins. Expect his targets to bolster now with Enunwa out. McCown loves his tight ends. I've mentioned this on 10 on the Head before. He made Barnage a beast. And Seferian-Jenkins lost 25 pounds, stopped drinking, and seems to just be motivated on a team that needs someone to be motivated. So I do like Austin Seferian-Jenkins. I also like Ardarius Stewart. Mike?
You took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say, gosh, if you're making me pick between this is like a root canal without Novocaine, or when I was a kid sitting there eating Brussels sprouts on a plate. None of them are very, very good. I will go with Robbie Anderson if you make me pick. I just think that sometimes I'm a little hesitant with the rookies coming in making an impact. This is a team that's going to need veteran leadership. Stewart is obviously the long-term answer. For this year, Robbie Anderson, you mentioned the trouble, like pushing a police officer down in the club. Suboptimal situation. But I think he will not get suspended for that. He will be there, but I agree with you. I think the passing game is based on Powell and Forte out of the backfield, and I love Austin Seferian-Jenkins. McCown focuses in on one guy and hits him repeatedly with targets. I don't know who he's going to here. Anderson's a little too feast or famine in my mind in comparison to Jenkins. I think Jenkins has a higher floor. If you made me pick, I would go with Robbie Anderson, but I agree with you. I like to take Nick. I think Seferian-Jenkins is the best play and the best value in this receiving group.
Yeah, it looks like we're in agreement on that. Absolutely. ASJ might be someone you should be targeting late in your drafts. If you're going with Gronkowski, Jordan Reed early, he could be a great person to just have as a secure blanket. Or even if you're waiting and trying to get Hunter Henry, Eric Ebron, Jack Doyle, if they don't turn out like we hope, he's always good to be back up on your team. That's great. Let's go to question number 3. So question number 3, sticking with our wide receivers. What wide receiver on a new team will make the biggest fantasy impact? And there's a lot of players out there. Terrell Pryor, Alshon Jeffrey, Deshaun Jackson. And the list is big this year, and there's a lot of good players that have potential to be studs. But who I'm going with is someone a little bit lower on the list, I guess right around Deshaun Jackson area. But Pierre Garçon, entering San Francisco's prolific offense with at the helm of Brian Hoyer. I focused this question on the value part of the question. Where he's being drafted and to where he can finish is huge in my books. So there's Brandon Cooks, who should probably be the highest scoring wide receiver on a new team, but is his value that much better than where he's being drafted? I don't think so. I think he's being drafted pretty much where he needs to be. But Pierre Garçon has the most value at wide receiver on a new team. He's going as the 7th round selection, 35th wide receiver off the board, and I can see an easy top 20 finish for him. His quarterback is better. I mean, Hoyer started and ended 4 games for Chicago last year, threw 300 yards in every single game, 6 touchdowns, 0 interceptions on a pretty dreadful Bears team. Kyle Shanahan joins San Francisco, and though Kyle Shanahan's first year on a new team is never hugely satisfying for the top wide receiver, he still made Pierre Garçon, or I guess I shouldn't say made, but Garçon had his best career with Kyle Shanahan, best year with Kyle Shanahan, posting over 1,300 yards and getting over 130 receptions, if I'm not mistaken, while Kyle Shanahan was offense coordinator in Washington. I think they're just going to get along well. Hoyer can throw the deep ball. Garçon can catch it. Give me Garçon as a sneak value play. Mike?
Well, there's a lot of good options. This is a great question. I'm already working on an article for this one for Last Word on Sports. Garçon, Alshon Jeffrey, Jeremy Maclin, Decker, Deshaun Jackson. I got a soft spot, too, for Ted Ginn Jr. Don't ask me why. But I got to stay with the biggest fantasy impact. If you're saying who's going to be the guy that has the biggest impact at the end of the season who switched teams, it's got to be Terrell Pryor. Now, his ADP is higher than all those other guys that we mentioned, but I think he has a chance to be a top 8 wide receiver this year in all of fantasy. Last year, he was in a much less fantasy-friendly situation. He had, over 1,000 yards with 5 Cleveland different quarterbacks. He has great size, athleticism. You see him on Twitter and social media working out with Randy Moss in the offseason. He's got a really good quarterback. And also, the other options there. I mean, Jordan Reed is already visiting Dr. Andrews because of an injury. Josh Dobson got hurt in practice the other day. This guy, I don't see how he gets 1,000 yards and finishes in PPR as the number, I think, 18 or 19 wide receiver, and then go to this situation in Washington and not do better. I love Garcon in San Francisco. I think Deshaun Jackson and Ginn are great best ball candidates at their spots, and Macklin should be a top wide receiver in Baltimore, but the Flacco concerns knocked him down. If you're looking best fantasy performance, even though his ADP is high, I'm going to go with Terrell Pryor end of the season.
I love the Terrell Pryor play, and he's been highlighting the highlights this year through training camp. He had that one-handed catch that had everyone buzzing. They lost 2 1,000-yard receivers in Washington. Kirk Cousins is a great quarterback. Pryor seems to be in the perfect situation. I do like Crowder coming out of Washington too. I'm not going to say I like them better or worse. I like them both. They're both going to be good wide receivers. Great pick. Question number 4 is a fun one for me. This is one I wrote an article about earlier this season, and I put this question on here specifically just so I can talk about it and put my I told you so out there, because at the end of the year I have a feeling I might be right on this. Best rookie wide receiver of the 2017 campaign, Zay Jones. Watch out for this kid to fly into Buffalo as a number 2 wide receiver and maybe possibly be a number 2 wide receiver on your fantasy teams. Watkins scares me a lot. I'm actually going to get in a little bit on Sammy Watkins in a couple questions, so I'm not going to talk too much about him, let alone he just scares me. Robert Woods, who was their number 2 wide receiver, averaged 90 targets the last 3 years. If Zay Jones comes to fill that role and sees 90 to 100 targets, he can make the most of them, catching 66% of them. Give me him to make over 800 to 900 yards and see the end zone a little bit more than Sammy Watkins or a lot of the other rookie wide receivers. Williams is hurt. Davis is hurt. Davis, even when he comes back, is battling Decker, Matthews, Murray, Walker. Jones. There's McCoy and there's Watkins. They did just sign Anquan Bolden, and he's going to take away the red zone targets that I was expecting for Zay Jones. But that doesn't mean that he's not going to get his opportunity when the chance is there. I'm loving Zay Jones. Bolden's a little bit older. Mike, what do you got?
Yeah, I would have liked Zay Jones a lot better until that Bolden signing happened, because I put a tweet out today on my account about the impact that Sammy Watkins has. If he's healthy, Tyrod Taylor gets a 0.5 boost in his touchdowns per game and about 30 more receiving yards. Now, they didn't pick up Watkins' contract, so he's pretty much on a show-me year. He's got to stay healthy. If he doesn't stay healthy, then it's a disaster. So I think between Watkins, Charles Clay will get some targets if he's healthy, and Bolden, I feel like Zay Jones is going to have some big moments. He'll flash, but I feel he's going to be a little too volatile for my liking. For me, I thought people were way too high on Mike Williams' potential impact with the Chargers before he got hurt. And I think Corey Davis is pretty much going to be the 3rd most targeted wide receiver in Tennessee. So I'm going to go with a guy who I didn't actually like coming into the draft, but I love his situation, John Ross in Cincinnati. He needed shoulder surgery. He is fast. He's a poor man's Ted Ginn, but he landed in exactly the right situation. The Bengals have finally realized here, Nick, that they can't have sustained success by centering the offense around Jeremy Hill. As shocking as that is to all of us, let me tell you, they finally realized it. So A.J. Green was making catches in double coverage, but the problem is now the Bengals have the 6th best overall offense with all their additions. Joe Mixon came in there as they're moving forward. So I think that between Eifert, A.J. Green, they were averaging 26 points per game in 2016 when those guys played, but it was only 3 games. They're going to use Ross in a variety of ways. They'll do slants, reverses, deep balls, and the Bengals offense is going to be more like the majority of offenses you see in the NFL, short, quick, passing routes. They're not going to go with the ground and pound with Jeremy Hill anymore. So Mixon, Bernard, Eifert, Green, you have LaFell and Tyler Boyd who are back as experienced guys. I think Ross has the perfect combination of success. He's on a good team, veteran QB, a star across the field for him to draw attention, and he has an ability that the Bengals did not have already on the roster with his game-breaking speed. I don't think he's a redundant asset, so I think he's your best wide receiver of 2017.
I love it. And the Bengals went hard to get him. They went high. They drafted him a little higher than everyone was expecting. He's got the speed. Obviously, as we all know, he broke the 40 record time. It's a great pick. I do like Tyler Boyd a lot in Cincinnati. I don't like Jeremy Hill. I've had him for the last 3 years, and finally, this is the year. I'm just cutting ties. Though I don't like Joe Mixon as much as maybe a lot of other people. I do think Gio's gonna be a real sneaky late round pick if anyone's making a little note next to him. But John Ross, that's who we're talking about, and that's a great pick. He is a speedster in comparison with AJ Green on the other side. That's gonna be tough to battle. I don't know who's gonna do it. That's a great pick. So question number 5: who's the best current wide receiver 3 on an NFL team for fantasy football? And in my opinion, I'm loving the other rookie, the one that I didn't mention as maybe the top rookie, but I'm still loving this guy as the number 3 wide receiver in Pittsburgh, Juju Smith-Schuster. I'm expecting great things from him. Roethlisberger loves to hit his slot guy. If Bryant stays healthy for 16 games, that'll be pretty shocking in my mind. I just don't see you missing a full NFL year, coming back into this hard-nosed game and competing in all 16 games. I just foresee a gut feeling here tells me that Bryant might be hurt a little bit. That's going to be perfect time for Smith-Schuster to come up and really show the explosiveness that he's been showing in training camp. He's been also making strides in highlights. You just go on Twitter, you go on any NFL site, and you just see Juju Smith-Schuster just getting reports that he is being phenomenal. He's catching everything thrown to him. He's just a playmaker. So wide receiver 3, I was thinking Allen Hurns. He's a good wide receiver 3. There's a couple good wide receiver 3s that I like, but Juju Smith-Schuster is a sneaky one that I'm targeting late in drafts and could be a very phenomenal wide receiver in Pittsburgh. Mike?
That's a good one, and I'm with you on Martavis Bryant. I don't get the whole hype with Bryant. I think it's totally nicked because of that juggling catch he made in the end zone 2 years ago between his legs. No player has come back from 2 drug suspensions and been successful. So this guy's going to make history if he comes back and makes a major impact. I agree with you about the injury concerns. I think Schuster and a couple of the guys there could draw some more targets, but I like that pick. This was a great question. I mean, you have Dontrell Inman with the Chargers, who I think is underrated. Sterling Shepard was up there until he recently got injured. Cole Beasley's a PPR machine. Kenny Galladay's drawing great reviews out in Detroit. And then Brandon Coleman, Ted Ginn are getting good reviews down in New Orleans. But if you're thinking about a third wide receiver, I'm going with Rashard Matthews in Tennessee. He finished top 30 among all wide receivers in red zone target share, top 10 in red zone receptions with 12, and 6th among fantasy wideouts with 9 touchdowns. Now, the most impressive part here is he only started 10 games. He was battling with Andre Johnson at the beginning of last season. He wasn't even starting. Eric Decker is there. I know that, so he's pretty much the second guy, Decker. But he's over 30, and he's going to need time to build rapport with Mariota. Let's pump the brake on Corey Davis. I like him. He's a rookie, but let's take it easy on that one. I think Matthews is going to be the top guy for most of the week, especially at the beginning of the season. Matthews has 260 reception seasons on his resume, and I think you're getting a wide receiver 2 in PPR format at a wide receiver 3 ADP. He's 3rd on the Titans ADP fantasy draft boards, but I think he's the best value. I think he's got a safe floor. Rashard Matthews, Tennessee.
I love the Rashard Matthews play. A couple more things on Rashard Matthews. He caught 6 out of 6 passes in the 10-yard line, scored a touchdown on 5 of them. He caught 12 out of 15 passes, 80% of the balls thrown his way in the red zone last year, scored 7 times. His chemistry with Mariota is phenomenal. You should not be sleeping on Rashard Matthews. That is a phenomenal pick from Mike. Question number 6, the biggest bust of 2017, and it must be a wide receiver. We're talking wide receiver bust, and it's hard to predict busts. Who knows, who won't be able to succeed at a level they're expected to because of injury or bad team play, bad offensive line injury, affects the quarterback, affects the wide receiver. It's super, super tough to even guess that. But here on 10 in the Head, I like to ruffle some feathers. And maybe sometimes I'll get some guests that don't like to ruffle feathers, but I'm going to make them ruffle some feathers. So Mike, be ready to get a couple hate tweets because of this. But let's talk about our biggest bust of 2017. And for me, I'm going with Sammy Watkins. I am not buying Sammy Watkins. I never have. He proved me wrong his first 2 years, 1,000 yards, 900 yards. But everything trends down. Games played, trends down. Games started, trends down. Yards, trends down. Touchdowns, I believe, trends down. Don't quote me on that. But it just seems like everything now we're just like, okay, he's been really, really good his rookie year. He did really good 2 years ago, but he didn't play all the games. Last year he played in 8 games and he was very underwhelming. And then he was just hurt, and he was hurt all year. So now Sammy Watkins is healthy. He's back. He's on a contract here. He's going to be great. No. Spare me on that. Let me see Watkins prove. Let me have Watkins prove to me that he can stay healthy and be productive with Tyrod Taylor back there, with LaShawn McCoy, with a new coach. It just seems like there's too many red flags for me to be drafting Sammy Watkins as high as he's going. Everyone else is in love with Sammy Watkins, it seems like, and when everyone's in on something, let me be the guy to take one step back and go the other direction. Be a leader, not a follower. For me, Sammy Watkins. Mike?
Oh, I don't care about ruffling feathers, Nick. You got to zig when everybody else zags. I just put an article out. This is not my answer, but this guy is right there also. I put an article out about Des Bryant for Last Word on Sports recently, and I got the hate flowing from Cowboys fans. I just don't see him as a wide receiver one this year. I think they're going to pass more, and I understand that he's a red zone target, but he doesn't get high enough receptions. However, when I was looking at the list, I thought of Brandon Cooks. I thought of Dez. I thought of people like Dante Moncrief. People love him. But with ADP and everything involved, the biggest bust is going to be Alshon Jeffrey. Wasn't last year, Nick, the prove-it year for Alshon? He needed a contract. He was in a familiar setting in Chicago. He had every reason to perform, and more importantly, he had to stay on the field, and he couldn't do it. Not only did he not do that, he got suspended for using performance-enhancing drugs. So let's put this in perspective. He now comes to Philadelphia. He's got a young quarterback in Carson Wentz. He's got Jordan Matthews, Torrey Smith, Zach Ertz, Nelson Aguilar, who's having a great camp, by the way. And don't forget about Darren Sproles out of the backfield. I wouldn't even think about drafting Alshon Jeffrey until like wide receiver 30 area, 35. And right now he's at wide receiver 19 with an ADP of 38.3 in my fantasy league. I think that's absurd. I love all of these guys who are going after Jeffrey a lot more. Devontae Adams, Pryor, Golden Tate, Fitzgerald, Crowder, Edelman, Snead, on and on. Alshon Jeffrey, Philadelphia, no thank you. How on earth are you going to predict when he has a big game? You're just not. And given all the other concerns I said, I wouldn't be shocked if Alshon Jeffrey was out of the league in 3 years. So to me, that's the biggest wide receiver bust.
Woo! Did you guys hear that hot take? That is awesome. Alshon Jeffrey maybe out of the league in 3 years. Yeah, he just underperforms every year. Meredith showed him up. I was a second-year receiver, and he just looked light years ahead of Alshon Jeffrey. Suspended for PEDs. Didn't even make an impact when he was on PEDs, apparently. Spare me on Alshon Jeffrey. I love that pick. He was right up there for me as well. Going to a new team, high expectations, big contract. That just never really seems to pan out. So, spare me on Alshon Jeffrey. I agree with that. Number 7, as always, on 10 in the head, the bold prediction for 2017. Sometimes you can go real bold, sometimes you don't have to go that bold. This must be a wide receiver, and for me, I'm going to give a shout out to my home team here, the Detroit Lions, and I'll go on record saying that Marvin Jones is going to outscore his ADP by an outstanding number. Being drafted 45th, I see him finishing as a top wide receiver too. Matt Stafford loved him last year. He looked phenomenal in the first couple of weeks. He dealt with an injury for the last 15 weeks, and as a football fan, and every other football fan out there knows, that happens. That is what can happen. Lingering injury in any sport can just reduce the stats and get everyone off his train. We know Jim Bob Cooter is going to make Detroit throw the ball. We know Stafford has an arm to throw the ball. Bolden, as we talked earlier, is gone. That opens up 8 touchdowns, ton of red zone targets. And Matt Stafford, I'll reiterate, loved Marvin Jones. He went after him so many times, even when injured. Deep passes, the yards per pass from Stafford to Marvin Jones is outstanding. If he stays healthy, he worked on his route running with Randy Moss this offseason. He worked on just being able to get faster. He's got a full year in the Lions team. Watch out for Marvin Jones to just break out like he did the first couple games last year, all 16 games for the Lions. Maybe that's just the Detroit talking in me, but watch out for Marvin Jones. That's my bold prediction for 2017. Mike?
Those that don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. There is always a wide receiver that comes from the low ADP area and jumps up and makes a massive impact. Last year was Terrell Pryor. So I looked back at the area that Terrell Pryor was getting drafted in and said, which one of these guys do I think can really make a big step forward? And the answer is Mohamed Sanu in Atlanta. I think Mohamed Sanu is going to finish as a wide receiver 2 or better. Last year, Pryor was the 81st wide receiver drafted with an ADP of 181.6, and he finished 19th. He made a conversion from quarterback to wide receiver. He totaled over 1,000 receiving yards, like I said, with 5 different starting quarterbacks. His season was even more unlikely because he was out of the league in and out for his first 5 years. So it was an incredible year. The cornerstone prediction breakout is Sanu. He's the same age as Pryor was last year, 27. He has a similar ADP of 177.6 at wide receiver 69. He was a quarterback in high school like Pryor and converted to wide receiver. Last year, the Falcons produced 11 30-plus point games and 5 40-plus point games. Now, he was 17th last year among all wide receivers with 9 red zone receptions, and he also was competing with Julio Jones and Devonta Freeman. And he ranked 9th among wide receivers with a 72.8% catch rate. So he catches balls that are thrown to him. Jones has that history of nagging injuries. They got a new offensive coordinator with Steve Sarkisian calling the plays. I think they're going to find ways to get Mohamed Sanu more involved. He's versatile. When he was in Cincinnati, he was throwing it. He was going on reverses. I think he's in an explosive offense. I think they're going to have to spread the targets out a little more. And I can see Sanu from that Terrell Pryor ADP range producing a wide receiver 2 season, back-end wide receiver 2, 24, 26, 28, something like that. But totally outperforming his ADP.
I love it. So it looks like Marvin Jones and Mohamed Sanu are the bold predictions. What do they have in common? They're coming from Cincinnati a year ago, had a year to get adjusted to their new team, and now we're expecting big things from them. Question number 8, and it's a toss-up. Allen Robinson or Sammy Watkins? And for me, it's kind of easy to know my answer. As I said before, Watkins, I just am not buying. But I do like Allen Robinson. Sure, Blake Bortles looks dreadful in preseason or in training camp. Sure, he threw 5 touchdowns in one game and has thrown nothing but touchdowns while practicing with New England. Sure, Blake Bortles the worst quarterback maybe in the starting. No. Allen Robinson will be all right. It's all right. He'll get the volumes. He'll get the volume. I know he had the volume last year and he didn't really succeed to what people wanted. But it doesn't scare me away from Allen Robinson. You can't look at 2016 and just assume that the exact same thing is going to happen in 2017. You need to read patterns. You need to be looking at things. And you need to have a gut feeling. And in my opinion, my gut is telling me that A-Rob comes back with a vengeance. He's going to come back. He's on a team with a new coach that's going to try to be a little bit more productive, more efficient. And that's going to mean that Allen Robinson will have the chance to really succeed when he didn't have a chance to succeed last year in Gus Bradley's offense. So watch out for Allen Robinson over Sammy Watkins. In my opinion, that's who I like. Mike?
Nick, I'm going to freely admit that this could be by experiential bias on my part because I picked at the end of the first round in almost all of my drafts last year, it seemed like. But I had a ton of shares of Allen Robinson, and he massively disappointed me. Look, Detroit's quarterback, Matt Stafford, at some point was nicknamed nationally, Matt, if he can only stay healthy, Stafford. That was like his name. He's eradicated that because he stayed healthy. At some point, Sammy Watkins is either going to stay healthy or he's going to be out of the league. I think this is the year he stays healthy because he has every reason to be. And because of that, and the fact that he's on a proven contract with the Bills because they declined his 5th-year option, everything in Buffalo is better, and Sammy's going to be better than A-Rod. Like I said, Tyrod averages a full half touchdown more per game and 30 more receiving yards when he's on the field. The issue with Robinson is super talented wide receiver, but he's got a killer combination. He's got an inaccurate quarterback, a new coaching staff that wants to run more, and a worse offensive line. Watkins has been playing injured. I understand that, but if you made me choose, I'm going to roll the dice on the guy that when he plays has a massive impact. I don't want a player like A-Rob who I'm really going to have to probably bank on garbage time with. It's the same reason I don't like Bortles. He may get to the numbers at the end, but I don't want to sit there. Now, I want to stay healthy, Nick. I don't want to sit there at 3:15 Eastern Standard Time seeing that Allen Robinson has 3 catches for 35 yards and say, well, they're getting blown out. Maybe he'll catch 2 bombs for 60. I want my heart rate low. I want consistency. At least if Watkins is healthy, I know he's going to produce.
I absolutely love that answer. I, too, want to stay healthy, and I hate sitting there at 3:15, getting out of work. I work until about 3, getting out of work, coming home and looking at my fantasy team and just thinking, oh, my God, I'm going to need some big garbage time points. I would much rather come home, sit on my couch, look at my team, and be like, wow, to beat me, they're going to need a lot of garbage time points. Good luck. I love it. I love it. Let's keep going. That's a great answer. You got Sammy Watkins from Mike, A-Rob from me. All right, keeping it going. Number 9, toss-up. And this is a good one. This is high. This is a high draft pick. So you're sitting there, maybe pick 5, pick 6, wherever it might be, and all of a sudden you realize that there's Mike Evans or A.J. Green available. Who do you take? For me, I got to go with A.J. Green. Look, I see some targets being spread around in Tampa Bay. I know Evans and Winston's have the brotherly love that everyone wants out of a wide receiver. Evans has the potential to be the best wide receiver in the game. He's shown that he can do it. But last year, he had over 170 targets. I don't foresee 170-plus targets for Evans this year. I see D-Jax coming in and really making a splash. He's a little bit older, but he's still got his speed, and Winston loves that. There's O.J. Howard, who's going to come in and be someone that Winston's going to look for in the middle. You have Chris Godwin, who's looking great in training camp. You have Humphreys and Brait still there. I mean, the running backs can catch the ball. I'm just thinking that there's a lot of love to be spread around in Tampa Bay. I don't think Evans is going to be too upset with that if his team is winning. Now, A.J. Green, like you mentioned before, they got John Ross, they got Boyd, they got LaFell, they got Eifert, they got pass-catching Gio, they got pass-catching Mixon. Hill's horrible. Get him out of there. So you can say, well, they're both going to be, getting the ball spread around. But I have a feeling more that A.J. Green is Dalton's go-to guy no matter who is on that team. Where Winston is more of an NFL IQ, he's going to just spread the ball around. I see Dalton just pushing and pushing and pushing to A.J. Green, much like Stafford did to Kelvin. A.J. Green may have got injured last year, and it seemed to have just made everyone forget how good he really was the last couple years. When he stays healthy, he's a wide receiver. He's a top 3 wide receiver. Are we expecting him to get injured this year? Not me. I mean, you never can predict that, but if A.J. Green stays healthy for 16 games and Mike Evans stays healthy for 16 games, give me A.J. Green over Mike Evans. Mike?
We're in lockstep here. I'm going to go A.J. Green as well. I've been critical of A.J. Green in the past because I don't like his volatility. He'll have the 200-yard week and then have the 30-yard week because he'll get double-teamed. And Dalton isn't a good enough quarterback to get him the ball when he's double-teamed. But I wrote last year, I thought he was a glorified best ball guy in an offense. But now that offense has changed, like I said before, I think that that's the move. Like you said, they have all the great options now. Eifert, John Ross. It's wheels up for him and A.J. Green. I will share a story with you. Explain to me, Nick, how I avoided and did not make the playoffs last year when I had Matt Ryan as my quarterback, Melvin Gordon as my running back, and Mike Evans as my wide receiver. Okay? Just bizarre stuff. The answer is schedule. I had a killer schedule. But the point is, I saw Mike Evans. I watched every single one of his games because I needed all that big production. He's a phenomenal receiver. He's a phenomenal option. But like you said, he is a guy who is dependent on volume. I took a look at the top 15 wide receivers in terms of yards after catch. He, by far, had the lowest yards after catch average last year at 1.8, which means he's not breaking tackles, Nick, and he's very dependent on Winston's throws. Also of note, which is interesting, Evans ranked 9th among wide receivers with 19 red zone targets, but only 17th with 9 red zone receptions. So when they get in the red zone, the teams are starting to figure out, we can't let him catch the ball. Teams caught on to him as the year went on. Down the stretch in the fantasy playoffs, as you were coming towards the end, week 13, 14, 15, he was the 64th, 50th, and 42nd PPR wide receiver. That is not cutting it. Green averaged 4.2 yards after the catch for Cincinnati, which, by the way, was more than Antonio Brown. And according to Mike Clay of ESPN, the Bengals have the easiest schedule of any team this season. So give me A.J. Green in a more fantasy-friendly offense over Mike Evans.
Ooh, there's some good stats we got coming out of there. I love the Mike Clay shout out too. We love listening to Mike Clay. Keep doing your thing, Mike. Awesome. Looks like Mike and I both in on AJ Green over Mike Evans this year. It'll be tough for both in for AJ Green over Mike Evans this year. It'll be tough for Mike Evans to get the volume that we're accustomed to. In my opinion, Green is a beast when he catches the ball. Let's go. We got our one last question to go here. And that question, number 10, as always on 10 in the head, is our late round flyer. Someone that everyone, get your pen, get your paper out, get your rankings out, make a little asterisk next to these guys, because these guys might be someone you want to get with the last or second to last pick in your draft. Must be a wide receiver. We're doing wide receiver show. And for me, I have two written down. And I basically will go every episode I'll go with, which one isn't talked about. And we talked about one already, and it was my number one. It was Rashard Matthews. We've already mentioned him. We're not going to go on again repeating everything that I said. Draft Rashard Matthews. I don't know why he's being overlooked. But my second guy is a guy that just got named starter across from Doug Baldwin, a guy that is big and they have lofty expectations for, in Paul Richardson from the Seattle Seahawks. And I didn't even know who this guy was until the final couple weeks of last year, and then all of a sudden I'm watching the playoff game, Detroit versus Seattle, crying, hearts racing. I know we won't win, but damn it, I want to see us win. And then Paul Richardson makes this unbelievable catch that put every Detroit person on shock. At that point you knew that Seattle was going to run away with it, and Richardson makes this catch that everyone in the world looked like it said it was incomplete. You look down, zoom. All of a sudden, you realize that it's a touchdown. It was not a bad call by the refs. It was just merely a great catch and throw from Wilson to Richardson. Now Richardson's being named the number 2 wide receiver on Seattle, a team that doesn't have the best offensive line but has a phenomenal quarterback who seems to be healthy this year, a running game that's kind of iffy. Baldwin's Mr. Consistency. He'll get his volume, but they'll throw to their number 2. Lockett's good in the slot. We'll see Jermaine Kearse in the slot. But watch out for the big guy in Paul Richardson, who they love in Seattle and they want to be great. They're going to give him the opportunities, and if they're giving him the opportunities, I'll take the chance on him with one of my last picks, Paul Richardson. Mike?
Folks, we did not talk before we came on this podcast, I can assure you. I am picking Paul Richardson of Seattle also. Nick, all the reasons you said are spot on. The kid's 25 years old. He was out because of an injury, so this is really his third season, right? That critical third season. It's actually his fourth, but really his third because he only played one game in that second year. He's got 4.4 40-yard dash speed. He was a huge contributor in college at Colorado. You mentioned the game against the Lions with the catches. Listen, he's now ahead of Lockett and Jermaine Kearse. Jermaine Kearse is not good. Jermaine Kearse is a wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 type guy in that offense. And Tyler Lockett is a gimmick. He's like my kids' Hatchimals that I just got for them. These dolls that just talk back to you and train them, these little pets. My daughter likes it. My son has no interest. I have no interest in gimmicks. You can keep Cordarrelle Patterson, you can keep Tyreek Hill, and you can keep Tyler Lockett. It's cute, it's nice, but it's not going to sustain you through. Paul Richardson is the guy in this offense. He's tall, he's lanky, he makes the circus catches. I think Wilson's going to have a big year. Folks, we did not talk about this. I am with you. Paul Richardson in Seattle is my choice.
2 people saying Paul Richardson as the late round flyer. You really should be putting a couple asterisks next to his name. Watch out for him. His stock is about to rise. Who knows if he'll even be a late round flyer come late August, early September. But if you're drafted now, make sure you're drafting Paul Richardson late. That's been a great 10 in the head, 10 questions. Thanks for listening. 10 in the head loves having you here. Mike, it has been phenomenal talking to you. You're awesome. You're hilarious. I can't wait to have you back on. But Mike, for everyone listening who wants to listen to you, follow you, read what you write, where do they go to find you, man?
It's been a blast, man. I'll come back anytime. Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter, guys. FTSY Warrior Mike, Fantasy Warrior Mike. I'm on Last Word on Sports. Great website. Our fantasy football department is expanding. I'm team manager now, so we got some great stuff over there. I'm also writing for Dynasty Trade Calculator, for Fantasy Pros, and Roto Underworld over there. A real great website as well. So once you hit college basketball, too, if you want to hear some more takes take a look at us at the Screen the Screener College Basketball Podcast, available on iTunes. But thanks so much, Nick. This was a lot of fun, man, and hopefully the people got some good advice, and fingers crossed that we won't have another year of me drafting Allen Robinson, that's for sure.
Oh, man, it's been great having you on, Mike. To anyone who wants to follow 10 in the Head, we're on YouTube, we're on SoundCloud, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, at 10 in the Head, Facebook.com 10 in the Head, YouTube 10 in the Head, SoundCloud 10 in the Head. 10 in the Head. Make sure you're listening to it. I'll just say that name 100 times, and hopefully by the 100th time you remember to go look it up. Make sure you follow. Make sure you like. Make sure you comment so I know, good or bad. I love all takes. And it's been a great show. It's been great having Mike, and thank you all for listening. Everyone, have a great day.